Hey everybody, Mr. West here. Alright, I'm going to talk about the method of construction for the FB. So the wing construction is an arm wing, and then the fuse is the tube fuse. All of these techniques that I'm going to show you are from Ed at Experimental Airlines. He has great build tutorials, so I'm not going to go too in depth about that, maybe, but the point is that he has very well done video tutorials on how to build these two pieces. So I would highly recommend you do that. Experimental Airlines on YouTube, and subscribe to his channel there. He's got just a ton of information and really neat stuff. So Ed over there, real great guy. Throw down your comments. He gets back to you. Throw him a private message. This might even be better as well if you have questions about his stuff, or private message me, and I can explain it as well in the way that I did mine. So let's get into it. So we'll start with the arm and wing. This piece that we're looking at right now is an arm. The cord that we're seeing here is measured from before the leading and trailing edge of the wing cord itself is 8 1/4 inch, and then it has a 2-inch control surface on here. Now the FBDrone is using the full sheet width, so it's actually 9 inches here to here, and it's not actually full sheet. It's pretty close, but I'm not actually using any of the Ed's design uses Ed's design at EA uses the top portion of the sheeting to come off the back, and so it's all continuous to do the control surface with a smaller cord. So that's not the case with the FB. Is I used the full sheet, or at least most of it, right? So the leading to trailing edge on the FBDrone is 9 inches from here to here, and then I added from more material used a 1 3/4 inch control surface. So my point is here on this is that this is a pretty good rough dimension, other than the cord is a little bit different. So these numbers, just substitute a 9 inch or even the 9 3/4, which is the complete full sheet folded. You get about 9 3/4. You lose a little bit right here because of this height difference, but it's measured 9 3/4 from here to here using full sheet, and then the fold on top, you end up with just a sliver to trim off back here. Okay, so if you take the thickness of this cord here, the overall thickness, which seems to be pretty good for a high lift, flat bottom, trainer style, it's pretty good in performance. As you've seen, it flies real well. It's 1 1/4 inches thick overall, and you could do this several ways using your spar of choice, and I'll talk more about that later. So if you take this is 6 inches wide, just a reference here, it's 31 grams for this 6-inch section. So if you do a 60-inch wing, you can expect to multiply that times 10, 310, correct? 310 grams with what you see right here in an 8 1/4. And yes, there is a continuous film on this. I was experimenting with some laminating film that you can Office Supply and so forth, they use sometimes full sheet laminating, like a continuous roll. That's what's on here, and that'll kind of simulate putting some sort of tape or whatever, clear tape on it. So I end up with 31 grams in a 6-inch section using a solid wood spar. It's 1/8 by 3/4 of an inch tall, and this is this is maple, solid wood maple that I've scrapped. I'm a cabinet maker by trade, so I've got all kinds of wood scraps that I come onto, and so that works really good. It's nice and straight. It's best to pre-finish these to prevent water from invading the wood, the dry wood. And so the technique that I used is, while this is laying flat, so unfold this, while this is laying flat, I leave paper on the bottom all the way, just like Ed's design, all the way to the leading edge on the bottom of the sheet. So if we're doing the full sheet, this would be 9 3/4 from the back edge of the bottom and then score on the inside at 9 3/4. Take all the paper off of the upper section, completely take it off, the full 30-inch width. And then there's a few things going on here that's similar but a little bit different than Ed's. One is the spar. He uses carbon fiber arrow, and he makes them removable, meaning the two 30-inch sections come together with a spar. I always make mine one piece continuous. I find that the 60-inch is quite easily transported in the vehicles that I have. And for most people that's probably okay, and it improves, I think, strength integrity. You can do it however you want. If you need it to be a breakdown, then build it exactly like Ed's with the spacing for the spar to slip in and out, and that would be through and through on the ends. No, not through and through on the ends. He folds his in half. So anyway, follow his instructions. You'll find that quite easily to follow. So what I do is I take 1-inch rips of foam board, and while this is laid out flat, I've pre-plotted out these locations. So always taking 2/3 is where I like to put my spar. So if I had a secondary spar back here through the midsection, in fact I do on the FBDrone, is I have at 3 inches in and 6 inches in is the location of the two spars. Okay, and I use these as locators. So I will hot glue these down on a line that I've drawn at these locations. Then I will put the spar in when it's time, and I can get more into that later, but the point is that I use these as locators. Alright, so the bottom section includes the two locators and the spar glued in place while it's still laid flat. And I've actually pre-folded this once to get the fold going in the right direction. It's easier to do that when there's nothing here in the middle. That way you can lay it all the way flat and give it kind of a pressure crease, if you will. Then open it back up and let it relax. Then do your layout, glue everything down on the bottom, and then locate on the top panel here, the top section of the wing, a 1.5 to 2 inch wide piece, and I take the paper off of the inside of this doubler. We'll call this a doubler on top. And the reason I take that off on the inside is so that it will curve down, and that will help then spread this load. So I leave the paper on the top side of the doubler. Paper is off on the top side of the wing. Glue those two together in the location as needed, so you're going to mark that out. Hot glue it down while it's flat. And so when you close this all up, you'll be putting glue on the top of the spar, because your spar is in place. You're going to put a little bead of glue along the leading edge, and you're going to close this up and press with a long stick. A 30-inch wide board is nice, like a 3/4 inch thick board that you can use to continuously press this down until the glue cools here on the inside. So now then the tail section of the trailing edge of the wing is still open, right? Because this is just glued here and here. This is kind of flying in the breeze. So the next is to close this back end. So what I did before that, while it was flat, is that I took 1 inch of paper off the bottom, and then I beveled with a sanding block on the edge of the table. I took the sanding block like so and angled the bottom sheet so that I end up with one thickness of material here that transitions right into your control surface. Otherwise, if you don't do this bevel, you're bringing two sheets together. You'll have two thicknesses here, and it's not a very good flow. Is it critical that you do that? No. But sanding blocks work really well for that, and what I use is a belt sander on a wood block. And I've shown that, I've demonstrated that in video in the past. I don't have one handy right at the moment, but anyway. So when you get ready to close this up, you then just angle the tip of the glue gun up underneath and run a continuous light bead the whole length. It doesn't have to be heavy either. Remember that this is all going to get closed, and then it's going to be continuously taped. So the tape acts as the fastener, and the glue is just to tack it in place and hold it there, the hot glue. So then close it and use your board to press it down on a flat table. And then what you've done then is just essentially you've closed this all up. So backing up just a little bit, I also do a reinforcement on the front leading edge. So right at the score on the bottom sheet, I cut the paper there, and you peel all the paper off the top, right? Well, what I do is I just barely tack down these bamboo skewers that I also get at the Dollar Tree store. Any bamboo skewer will do. Just pick some nice straight ones and about the same diameter, and then you, while this is laid flat open, you continuous glue them down, overlapping the pointed ends, butting the square ends, and just go the full length, cut them off at the ends. And what that does is going to give you some reinforcement behind this leading edge. If you take a pretty good hit right here without the reinforcement behind it, it will just penetrate further. So this will take a moderate ding without penetrating so far in and making a mess of things. So anyway, that's what I do in addition to. Is it required? No, not required. It does stiffen up the leading edge though, so that'll help with the overall lateral rigidity. You got your spar doing that, and then you'll have the leading edge doing that. And when this all comes together, this creates this exoskeleton, and it will not twist. You don't get any twist in this. So you have to be careful when you're gluing this together on final, is that you're gluing it down and it's parallel. Because if you twist this sheet and you glue it down, what you've essentially done is you've put in wash in the tip, either up or down on this wing tip. Your panel will be twisted in some way. Is that the end of the world? No, but it won't perform as, it'll have some tendency, it'll have some defect, if you will, in the way that it flies, and so that's not ideal, right? So you just got to be real careful that you're doing this on a nice flat surface, and that when you are folding this panel over, is that when you pre-fold this, make sure that these back edges line up parallel, because if you fold this over on an angle, there'll be some misparalleled back edges here, and that's not good. You can't glue that together that way. So make sure that you push this way or this way as you're folding it to make the back edge line up together. Once you've done that and you're good to go, make sure that you're doing that again when you hot glue this. So when you hot glue this beam down and you're pressing it, make sure that those come together and are laying parallel at the back edge. That's critical, because then you'll, like I said, you could have some twist in your panel, and that'll make it fly funny. You'll have to put in some weird trim, and you go, why do I have to put trim in it? Because your panel's twisted. Okay, so that's the arm and wing. This is what you want it to look like. No kinks. There's a little bit of a crown right here, and that's going to be the nature of the beast, I think. You could try leaving the paper on both sides of this doubler to see if it'll even spread it further and make this more rounded, because it'll apply more pressure here and here if there's no paper on this. It may make this less crowned right here, but I like it. It works good, and again, this is a sample. So practice on samples, 6 inches wide, whatever you have there. Make 2 or 3 of them, and you don't have to use spar material as your practice piece. You can use the foam board as your spar material, because again, this is just a sample. It doesn't have to carry a load, and the idea is that you're practicing making it with this space and this curve, and making this disperse the pressure here on top and get that nice curve. So that's that. Enough about that. Throw down your questions in the comments. Okay, so this is the tube construction. It's exactly the same as Ed's. Go to Ed's at EA, Experimental Airlines, and his folding fuselage or tube construction idea. I think in his very original one, he used a piece on the inside to join at the seam here, and I don't know that he's still doing that. I think I saw a video that he's changed the way he did that, but mine, I wanted to double the strength and improve the strength of the fuse. Instead of single wall, I'm using double wall throughout. Okay, so using Ed's technique, lay this sheet flat, and you want some dimension. And your batteries are the reason why you want some dimension in here. The batteries have to be able to move freely in the space. Again, this is height. and this is width with the FBDrone. This piece is a cutoff from this. This was originally a 30-inch section. I recommend that you build your fuse in a 30-inch section, and then you'll cut off what you don't need. This was unneeded because it was excess based upon doing CG layouts to find the location for the CG. So wing was constructed, everything was finished in the tail section, the motor is on, and now what I'm doing is I'm playing with CG. It's not covered or anything, right? And I have this additional length here. I have the wheels installed. I didn't have the wheels installed at that time, sorry. And then now you're moving the batteries around, and you put your camera gear all in the front here, and you find that this is way out there, right? So that means your batteries had to go way back. Now I wanted my batteries right in the middle of the space available, which is right in here. So if you want your batteries in the middle, then what you need to do is lighten up the front end to move them forward. So I chopped this off. So with my camera gear in the front, my main batteries here sliding in the middle space, that's how I determined how much I cut off. Tip. Alright? Okay. Back to this. So when it's laid out, Ed's idea is that you remove paper on the inside corners only. It's a 1/2 inch wide strip of paper. You score the length of the tube, 30 inches. You peel off that paper and you leave paper everywhere else. 1/2 inch removed here, 1/2 inch there, a paper, and 1/2 inch there. And then this is half of, right, this span, so that you end up with a seam that comes together. Okay? So you're working with inside dimensions. You need to experiment to play with if you want to lay your two batteries down flat, which is the way I did mine. I take my two blue batteries, my blue zippies, lay them flat right here, and that determined the width. And so I built this tube based on that. I wanted to reduce the profile height, so to reduce drag or wind effect from a crosswind, right? I don't want the fuselage to have so much effect on crosswind, right? So then what I did is doubled. So where the score lines are, let's say the score line right in here, the score line on the inside was exactly 3.5 inches. So the one single sheet I scored at 3.5 inches, and half of 3.5 is 1 3/4. So from here, the seam to the score line is 1 3/4, or it should be, right? It is. All right, so 1 3/4, and then when you fold this all up, it'll end up being equal. That's the goal, right? That I've got 4 1/8 here, 4 1/8 over here. There's a little difference on this one, though, I noticed. Yeah, about 1/16 of an inch. This is thicker over here than this, taller. Oh well, right? So the point is, then you take additional material in strips with paper on both sides, and I put tape on these as well. So I lay up another sheet with tape on it. Then I make these rips. So I made 2 at 3.5 and 2 at 1 3/4. That's for the sides. And then while it's laid flat and not folded yet, I hot glue down with just tackiness, and I usually put a glue bead here and here, and on the wide ones I put a third one down the center, but these here on the sides I just run a glue bead while it's laid flat on the outside edges. I don't need a whole lot of glue there. So then I hot glue those down, and I use a piece of wood there to press them flat again to make sure you squeeze flat the glue that's inside. Let that cool, and then I do the fold. Now on the bottom becomes a joiner piece. So I'm only hot gluing on one side to this inside doubler. And then when it gets folded up, this piece outside will lap on top of this former here, and this is where you glue. So I run a bead of glue right down here on the inside and one on the outer edge. Fold it over, stick my piece of wood inside that I use to press to the inside, and then squeeze it on both sides like so on this 30-inch piece. And you can reach your hand in there and press in and make sure it squeezes out. Hold that, squeeze it together, use some temporary tape, like because this is covered with clear tape, I can use scotch tape, not scotch tape, masking tape to do these holders for me, or ties if you will. So just put a few strips on here as you pull this together. Put some strips of tape on here, blue tape, because it pulls right off of this. If you put it on paper without this being skinned with clear tape, it'll probably pull the paper off of the foam board. Most tapes will do that to your foam board. Blue tape, painter's tape, is real release friendly, so it may not do it. Anyway, using painter's tape or masking tape for that. Blue tape preferred, like 1-inch wide strips by a roll of 1-inch. Okay? So then when I get ready to fold this all up, in addition to putting a bead right here, I'll put right here in the inside corner, I also did little spots of glue the whole length, and you got to do this really fast, and that's why the super hot glue gun is good. The small craft ones are good for small areas and quick work. The hot glue gun, the high temperature hot glue gun, like the bigger ones that use the larger diameter sticks, you need to run hot glue in places that are real long. It's 30 inches, right? So you need to make this really quick. So while it's laid flat, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2 rows right here. Close that all up real quick, and then help yourself by trying to square this up a little bit, you know, while you're shaping it, using that wood inside, and press it. So that's how the fuselage was done, and probably enough about that. The nose section is quite simple too, a little challenging, but it slips over the outside. Is that ideal? I don't care. You know, probably not. If it were flush, would that be better? Yes, and you can make it that way too. But this is how I did this one. Keep it simple. Is that I've used single layer foam board all the way around, and this piece here is continuous. It runs on the outside. So I made the 2 side panels, made them exactly the same. And I sampled using pieces on top and bottom to make sure that it fit tight here. A little bit loose, knowing that I was going to do doubling here. So I've got tape on the inside here, and it's taking up space. And it makes it a little bit of a snug fit, which is nice. So if you make it snug to begin with, it's going to get even tighter by the time you get tape finished here on the insides. And this turned out pretty good. It's not too tight and it's not too loose. And it's really not even going on that far on this one. It's just 3/4 of an inch in when it stops. So make your shapes on the side. You could even drop this nose down a little bit further, make it a little more lower. I just made it fully uniform round like that, so symmetrical. And then what I did is this piece here is continuous, right? And I took the paper off of the inside to make the curves. Anytime you do a curve, you need to take the paper off the inside of the curve so that it will form real nicely. So the paper is still left here. Then I cut a window later. I also put in some formers and things on the inside here. This is a shelf that the camera platform sits on, and that's for the bloggy that we're using right now. And then these top rails here on both sides are on top of the platform to keep it from moving up. And these are stops. That's a stop right there, the stop on the fuselage, like so. And then I use a piece of the camo tape on top, which needs to be replaced. It's lost its sticky. This is how I make sure that it stays on the front of the fuse. So, I think that's about it. Oh, hatches. The way I do hatches is that this is the original piece here, and then I put a deck in here as well. And this is something else to consider, is that if your batteries are this tall on the inside of the fuselage before you even put this in, and you need your batteries to slide underneath it, then you got to make sure that you have space above the battery for this kind of material to go in here. And this is a door stop, right? So all I did is I took the knife and went straight on through with a utility knife and a straight edge, and made this cutout. And then I used the tape as hinge. All right, and this is just a pull tab. This is just a pull tab here, makes it easy. Sticking up, and that's right in front of the wing. The wing stops right here. something like that. Okay. Yeah, and so this hatch is big enough for me to manipulate the batteries around. I don't put them in here actually from this direction. It works out that I can take both batteries, which I have taped together side by side. I can push them in the nose right up over this wheel, and then they go right into place back here, and I pull them into place. And on the bottom deck I have locators for my previous CG locations, whatever worked. I'll mark it, I'll put a piece of tape, scratch out what's not good, and this is after, you know, several trial and error flights with different loads in the front and so forth. So make your marks on the inside. And it's real important too that this inside material, these doublers, are pre-taped. So I always pre-tape my panels flat. My sheets, the 30 by 20s, are done first before I cut them, fold them, mark them, do anything with them. I always put clear tape. So really there's clear tape on top of this, under this, and then there's duct tape on top of it. And that's on all surfaces. My wings, all the flying surfaces. I have never done duct tape directly to papered board. I always do clear tape. It's adding strength, it's adding seal, and I close all edges as well, especially in the wing. I never leave a raw edge anywhere because this raw edge absorbs moisture into this space, and if you're in a high moisture environment, that's going to be critical, like back east, or if you've landed in wet grass, things like that, then leaving any exposed will get to the paper, and the paper then will suck it up, and then it will separate, and then you'll have bubbles, or you'll have whatever, discontent. We're going to talk about scoring technique here. Dollar Tree has several items that I like. Okay, they have the inexpensive. They have the inexpensive. Oh, I don't have any more. Oh yeah, I do. Okay, they have some inexpensive duct tape. This is 99 cents a roll. And here's a yellow. They have black and white and like a tree green, like a not hunter green. It's lighter than that. Just go to the Dollar Tree and look around for over there in the tool section. You'll find their tapes. You'll find masking tape in there. You'll find clear tape, things like that. And it's an inexpensive clear tape roll. So you've got that, and then they also have these, and it comes in a little cello package. Comes in a little cello package like this. There it is right there. Comes with a knife inside, and it has 13 break-off points. Comes in a little cello package like this. 99 cents. And here it is. It has a little lock tab, and you can move that out, which is really cool. Now, you can barely see this. So, you can barely see this very lowest setting lets the blade out just a 1/16 of an inch. I think you might be able to see that. Maybe. Hopefully. Set the lock. This is what I use to score with. So this is going right down to the paper, this end of the blade, the plastic, and then the knife is going down into the to the foam. Using a straight edge, you've made your marks on your paper where you want to score. What I do is I put the knife on the mark, and then I move the straight edge to the knife, right? And then I make my score. Very important. Right there, it was skipping and dragging, so that means that this blade is dull. Break off a new one. Break them frequently, and that's why this is so convenient, is because you're going to get a brand new blade every time you break it off. There's 13 utility knives in this one 99-cent tool. Amazing, right? So buy 2 or 3 of these. Highly recommend that. They also have small zip ties, like this fine small ones, so you can keep your help keep your wires and so forth arranged and coordinated in there. They have rubber bands there. They're cheap and really bad. I would highly recommend go to Office Depot, some office supply, and buy their what they look like 1/4 inch wide rubber bands, and they stretch out real nice if you're going to use rubber bands. I'm working on a new method using the Velcro attachment to the wing, and I made a video of that showing the drag queen in the video and how I made that strap work. And so we'll see how that works. There needs to be a little bit more improvement on that, and what that needs is that the wing needs to be fastened to the top of the plate sort of loosely. So I might end up putting some Velcro squares on the top mounting plate, the wing plate, and then on the bottom of the wing, and then when I set it on there, we'll keep it from moving so much, and then do the Velcro straps over the top of that, and I'm sure that it'll be fantastic. You know, because your Velcro tape is 3/4 of an inch wide. No more rubber bands stretching, breaking, digging into your materials, because it creases or digs into the leading edge, trailing edge, and you got to reinforce that and blah blah blah. Anyway, so what I've done is I've scored, and all day long you can peel paper like that. Works really good, in my opinion. Just like that. Look at that. Okay, and then it doesn't really weaken. You see what I'm saying? I'm pulling on this and it doesn't break. Now if you cut too deep, this is going to break easy, and it actually affects how it looks on the outside when you do your curves for some reason, and it weakens it. So use this technique, and then of course you can advance the blade for like deep cuts, for cutting doors out, for like a double layer right here. You can use that. Keep the blade clean, free of glue, and it'll pass right through that. Make several passes, you're good to go. So that is an invaluable tool. A short 12-inch metal or wood straight edge is a must-have. The other thing that the aluminum is good for is like when you're doing hot glue. Let's say you want to finish this in and you don't want it to be raw. Put a bead of hot glue on there and then stick this on there flat. What that does is acts as a heat sink, and it makes it cold, and it pops right off as long as this is clean. So a smooth surface ruler like this can act as a finishing tool. You could even take it like this and use it as a trowel and just go over it like that, and it makes it just tight, flat. And then there'll be excess on the sides. Hit it again and it should work pretty good. I've done that. Like you're doing a fill somewhere on a wing, you got a big open space or whatever, put a bunch of hot glue on it and then just slap that down right on top of it. Acts as a heat sink, makes it cools off, and then it pops right off when it's cold. What else? Well, I've got you here. Oh, make up mock-up ballast, not ballast, equipment weight. This is 128 grams, which equals the weight of the Bloggy. So whenever I do my testing, my flight testing, I'm putting this in the nose of the plane to substitute my good equipment. So you're starting a new maiden, starting a new bird, you don't know how it's going to act, you're at the highest risk possible is that very first flight. Don't put all your equipment in it. In fact, just build it to find the CG. Use this ballast because this camera is always going to be in the plane. The FPV gear might not always be there, so that's not critical that that weight is on there, though you could. The point is finding CG when you do your mating, right? You want to find out how she flies, detune the controls, tune them up, however you got to make it so that it flies responsibly, and then you need to find CG. So that's the goal of the maiden. Get her up high, level, into the wind, pull the throttle off. What does it do? Does it pop up a little bit? Then she's tail heavy. Does it drop the nose down hard? Then she's nose heavy. You want her to just kind of coast for a moment and then think about dropping the nose. Just coast 1 1000, 2 1000, and the nose drops down. That's a nice CG balance, and that's assuming that your control surfaces are neutral. So if you're having to do a lot of trim on your radio to get it to fly level with low to medium power, then there's CG issues, likely. But at high power, when you have the throttle all the way up, which I don't recommend, and you're having to trim a lot, that could be thrust angle causing a pitch. And that's what you'll be playing with. You won't be playing with roll. Roll is easy. Just trim for roll. And when you get back to the ground, you look at it and see, is it really off or is it actually pretty close and it needed a slight trim. Then you can think about one wingtips being too heavy than the other, then put a counterweight on the other side.